Hi, my name is Moshe Kindler, and I'm the publisher of The Jewish Link,
Hi, this is Elizabeth Kratz. I'm editor of The Jewish Link.
and you're on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting Podcast. Well, welcome here to the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting Podcast. I think we're up to episode 14 or 15. It's a wonderful day here, even though it seems to be raining. I'm really excited because I actually have our digital editor, Hannah Fisher, here filling in for Elizabeth Kratz.
Hello.
And we have a very special guest here today, someone who we've been watching for, I'd say, probably about 5, 6, 7 years. And his name is Eli Lebowicz. Eli, welcome to the Jewish Link.
Thank you. Shkoyach on the pronunciation. A lot of people don't get that.
That's okay. Wait, what most people say, Lebowicz or Lebowicz?
They see WICZ at the end and they just, oh boy, they get really flustered. It's easy to weed out the telemarketers.
Makes sense. No. So the truth is, I just want to say, first, I love comedians. I love humor. Chana doesn't know this, and our audience doesn't know this, but when we're really late at night at work or whatever, with like deadlines, I will often you can sometimes hear me listening to Jim Gaffigan or guys like Sebastian Maniscalco, and just I just like to laugh, and I actually saw you for the first time at a Pesach program many years ago. It was in Miami. Oh gosh, I'm forgetting which one it was. Probably about 5, 6, 7 years ago, and you really come a long way. So
that was
before we were talking about how you were.
Such a backhanded
that was such a
compliment.
we call that a Jewish compliment. You've really come a lot. What's like when I see
You've come a long way, and I was actually about to praise you, man.
I appreciate it. No, meaning, but like it was just it's like when I see people when I went to YU with, and when I started out, they're like, you got a lot better.
Okay, so I'm glad you said that, because that is true. But actually, I was going to say the opposite. Is we're sitting there in this audience at this Pesach program, and like you were actually, I think, the better entertainer. I said, that guy's got a lot of potential. I like that humor. I really like that. And the truth is, maybe tell us a little bit about Eli Lebowicz, that brand of humor, and also Mazel Tov as well. You moved into a home for the first time, so so you, as a new homeowner, so you get that Mazel Tov.
You.
And you're also our Jewish Link reader, which God willing,
it's Mazel Tov also. Yeah.
Yes. So just tell us a little bit about Eli Lebowicz, that brand of humor, how you got to it, and
well, which program was that? I gotta get them to hire me back for.
No, it doesn't exist anymore.
Okay.
That's why I'm blanking on the name.
No problem. Yeah. That's fine. Also, I did move into a house. We did have a home, but it was just in a smaller one. It was in an apartment, but
you weren't homeless before.
We were in an apartment in Riverdale for the last 5 years. Me, my wife, and my 2 kids, and now 6 weeks ago moved into a house. So I'm learning that you don't tell people your interest rate of your house is pretty much like your SAT score. You don't tell people unless you did well. So it did not do well.
Very true.
Just to make you feel better, we actually the rates 20 years ago are about what they are now. So meaning, if it makes you feel better, you and I both came to adulthood, or people like our age don't remember 6, 7, 8% rates. Which is what our parents' generation they are familiar with.
This became a very financial based podcast just now. So
we're gonna get away from.
We're gonna talk. No, I'm kidding. I mean, I don't know where do I start? I was 7 years ago. I've really been doing this full time. I've been doing this professionally for about 11, 12 years or so. I was doing. I remember doing a Columbia Hillel Friday night thing, but I was still that was like 2012 or so. So I've really been doing it professionally for about 12 years or so, and 11, 12 years. And then as of this year, January of 2023, I went on doing it full time, which is cool. Along the way, I worked at B&H, and I worked at the OU, and I'm going to be a mashgiach in Muncie soon. But no, I work in it. I'm kidding.
Oh, you're heading to that mashgiach? I thought you were leaving that
I
behind.
was just saying I kept getting firmer and firmer with my jobs, and then no, I thank God I took the leap in doing it full time as of January of this year, and it's been
really and by the way, just to let you know, I want you to understand that we want to help you. I think I tried to do an article when I heard that you were going full time. I said, I want to make sure that people know that. I want to make sure that I'd love to see a Orthodox Jewish comedian really succeed on a full time basis, especially someone local. I love the Modis. I love the Modis. I love the Ilan Golds, but there's a term, a Yiddish term like unzer, guy, someone from our base, our core. So I want
Yiddish
you
for lives in Teaneck, but
that's unzer is yes, okay. So yes, lives in Teaneck, yeah, 100%. Yes, I want to see a guy like you succeed.
No, well, thank God. Listen, Modi and Elon are great. I just did the show with them, and there's a lot of material about the Orthodox world that I think people have always known, but it's not has not always been represented. Even your Mrs. Maisels, the shows, it's like it feels like, all right, this is Judaism, but this is like, I call it like BuzzFeed Manischewitz Judaism, where it's like a little bit like, oh, I was gonna say like Rosh Hashanah, it's Rosh Hashanah is 2 days, but we're like, oh, it's 1 day. I'm like, it's 2 days. So that type of thing where it's like there's so much material within the Orthodox, day-to-day life that, I'm glad I can be one of the people representing it.
I want you to know that I think, and Chana Rel knows this, but humor is so touchy in the Orthodox world. And I want you to know that we at the Jewish Link we used to publish a Purim satire edition.
Yeah.
And we kind of like, we've had so many situations where people just take things the wrong way, and it's
Jews?
in print.
No way.
Way, okay? Total way.
Jews complaining about things?
I want to hear something crazy? We actually have a policy. We do not put, I don't know if Chana knows this, any Purim satire edition you will not find it online. You will never find it.
Yeah.
Okay? We pull it off.
I struggle with this every week because, I'm sure you know, Ellie Lebowicz, that I am the curator of Memes of the Week, which is a very popular section in the Jewish Link, and you are featured in it frequently. I screenshot your tweets, and I think they're very funny, and I think they appeal to what we were saying, a very niche Orthodox audience, kind of this humor in the daily life of Orthodox Jews. But I'm always nervous that somebody's going to send me a very angry Instagram DM about how offensive some meme was. I don't know when it's coming, but I get very nervous.
Well, we haven't gotten since it's October?
You know what? I don't think anybody's really complained. I don't know.
That's one of those things. I mean, I heard a comedian say that it's like, even when you watch let's say you post something online and then you have tons of comments of praise that all those first 1,000 will just bounce off you, but that one that's negative will stick to you.
I'm so worried about that.
But also like the same thing with comedy. I'm just thinking like, people are like, oh, what do you do if people don't laugh? I'm like, I don't know. I have enough confidence at this point that, it's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? Yes, they're going to say, I will get everyone to protest outside your office, and they'll be right outside,
I know.
Right
like,
outside
let's go get the digital editor of the Jewish Link. She's really...
Chana, actually, we've had these kind of things happen. We've been threatened, boycotted, banned, threatened, a lot of threats. So I'm actually going to say I'm happy you have not received the DM. I will say, unfortunately, it's likely that it will happen.
I know.
Religious humor, just making fun of.
I was like, we got really serious. We talked about finance and we talked about serious stuff.
It was like, they're coming for you.
They're coming for you. They're coming for your mortgage rates. All right.
The truth is, Ellie, you've probably said things on stage that people got upset at. Have you ever had that experience?
I told you I perform for almost exclusively Jews. Is that like?
Have any of that comments have ever like really cut to the core? Have you like
no, but like you get again. First of all, everybody has their line. Mike Birbiglia, one of my inspirations, I think, has a special called "Thank God for Jokes," and he says jokes have to be about something. And like people, it's so funny that people are like okay with certain topics, but then when it gets to certain things, they get offended. So like everybody's got a line, and Orthodox Jews are more okay with certain things, and then if it gets like dirty, whatever, they're not okay with it. And the other way around for us, the regular world is okay with certain things, and then they're not okay if it's like not PC. For myself, I remember performing at a Shava Brachos, for a pretty like I guess more yeshivish crowd, and I said I posted this like clip online about Orthodox proposals, how awkward it is, and like regular proposals like, will you marry me? Great, yes, and then they kiss or whatever. And that line, and then I said that line, and
you got torched. Probably.
This guy yells out, "Next topic, please!" And I was like, "This is the weirdest Jewish heckle I've ever gotten in my life." And I didn't know. And then afterwards, I was talking to the guy, and he was like, "Oh, listen, I have teenage daughters." I was like, "They know what kissing is," but it was one of those things. Everybody's got a line, and even jokes that. But what I also think what I bring to the table differently is that it's like if I'm making jokes about Orthodox Judaism, people are like, "Oh, you can't make fun of Judaism," and I'm like, I'm not. I'm wearing a yarmulke. I am a frum guy. Like, I am doing this. So all the more so I am seeing the humor of it from the inside, as opposed to, I think a lot of times comedians, it's just like, oh yeah, classic, like, I'm not religious anymore, and like, here's how stupid it is. And I just don't think that, I don't, just who the butt of the joke is also is, if people aren't nuanced enough, they just hear certain words or they hear certain things and they get all upset. So that is what you're dealing with. You're dealing, I'm performing for Jewish crowds, and I performed over Zoom, 100 shows over Zoom during like COVID, and like, thank God most of them were muted. But just the levels of people are, even in the desert during, what's it called? When Moshe in the desert with all the Bnei Israel, it's like food is literally coming down from the sky, and people are like, yeah, is that
still complaining? That's right.
Yeah.
All right, that's good. So talk to me a little about the influences. I always try to, whenever I see a comedian, I always like try to think, who's your influence, like, what kind of led you to it. By the way, were you considered a funny kid growing up? I'm just saying, was it something like, hey, not surprised, Ellie, this is where you should have been 20 years ago?
Well,
like
evidently, my brother says to me, I have an older brother, and just the two of us, and he says to me, he says he's much funnier than me because I talk a lot less. I talk a lot more, and he talks a lot less, and the ratio of things that he says to what's funny is way higher than mine. So that's what he says. But for me, apparently in my high school yearbook at Ida Crown, it says that I wrote in 10 years I'll be a comedian, which I don't even remember that happening. So I guess there was something there. I mean, I also started out working as a vendor at Cubs games in Wrigley Field, and I would do like Will Ferrell's Harry Carey impression. I don't know if you're familiar. It'd be like, hey, who wants to get some ice cream? Come on. You have no idea what I'm talking about. Whatever. But it's a bit on YouTube to watch Will Ferrell doing Harry Carey. So I would just always incorporate that. In terms of, I remember watching like Seinfeld's I'm Telling You for the Last Time, that special that came out. And I think my dad was very into comedy. He was into like George Carlin, Rodney Dangerfield, and all these guys. My influences, I would say, are definitely like Seinfeld. From stand-up standpoint, I would say Seinfeld, Gary Goldman, Mike Birbiglia, were big ones. Mike Kaplan, who's the guy who's on Last Comic Standing. Like really, really, I think smart humor. And in terms of like I think also just like the stuff you've absorbed. Like I was a big Seinfeld the show person growing up, and as well as The Simpsons. Those two things I think really like formed my sense of humor. And The Simpsons is like, jokes per minute type of like subtlety on the signs. And it's like Conan O'Brien was one of the writers. So like there's a lot of very stuff that you pick up that really informs your humor as throughout. But like it's funny that you said the perm satire thing for the Jewish League that you don't advertise online anymore. When I was in YU, I wanted to write our version of The Onion, and we basically created something called the Quipster, which was like I was like, hey, they have the perm satire version of The Observer or the Commentator. Mm-hmm. And I was like, let me do this all year round. So it was unofficial, but like it was mostly online, and then I would print it out, and I would actually put it in urinals in the men's bathrooms, and it was great. People would take a longer time to pee while they read my article, but and also during mincha. But so it was one of those things that I got. It was a good start to get people. You just got to. What I've learned from this comedy thing is just say yes and start doing things, because you never know what's gonna take off from that.
So it's fun. So I actually worked at YU with I remember the Quipster, so that's pretty cool. Yeah, that actually explains a lot. That explains. I get it, and I do remember you distributing it in the bathrooms, if I'm not mistaken.
I would hang them up, and it was great, and it was also again if you're you can laugh about and also I'm not pulling punches. I'm just like being a little bit like. I don't know. I maybe find chutzpahdik, whatever you want to call it. I don't think I actually am, though. I'm just like doing, calling it the way I see it, and just like here's a joke that's like about a topic that we're all kind of thinking about potentially.
I'm not so sure everyone's thinking about it, but could be thinking about it.
I guess so. I mean, yeah, some people can't tell a joke to save their lives, but like for me, I think of Jewish material.
That's awesome. Tell us a little bit about your creative process. Like how now that you're full time, I'm guessing like has it changed you full time? Do you try to like set aside a day, like a writer? Try to set aside a day or like like an hour to a day on material?
I in theory would love to do that, but as you said with the house, I'm just like realizing how much house stuff there is. I'm like, I'm doing a lot of laundry and dishes. No, I talk to Elon Gold a lot, a few times a week, and we kind of write together. I help him with some of his stuff sometimes, and it's and also with I started doing these like sketches with Ami Kozak and Mikey Greenblatt. It's called J Sketch. You can follow that on Instagram as well, and that's also been a really big creative outlet of being able to, instead of just doing a traditional stand-up, like really cultivate these sketches again about, we had one about Purim with Esther.
We have to mention, we have to talk about the CM one, which blew up, which we love. So tell us a little bit about our viewers, listeners may not know about it, but we in our office, my editor Elizabeth basically said it was the best day of her life. I was in love. I was smiling the whole day. So.
Well, listen, you have 100,000 views that says, "Hey, I was reading the Jewish Link, and did you see this article?" And so, I mean, I read Moshe Weinberger apparently mentioned our sketch in his team. I think he enjoyed it because he talked about it for 2.5 minutes.
He has a sense of humor.
Yeah, listen, he said, I try to. It's Narishkeit, so I try to forget it, but that's a good album title.
Yeah.
Or all Leitzanus aside. No, listen, we had this. We realized with the calendar, the first one we did was was before Purim, where I had the idea of saying, hey, what if Esther always, the fact that she hides that she's Jewish, what if she's like this over the top, extremely modern Orthodox Jewish person from like the 5 towns, and it's like Haman's like, nice to meet you, and she's like, Shomer, sorry. And then from that we did like what if a Jewish guy goes to a non-kosher restaurant for a business meeting, and then we had something about the Israel parade, and then so we have we've built on these. And one of the before the CM one, we had one about Shavuos shir titles that was really good, but the CM one was that we're just like, you know what, everybody makes a CM during the 9 days. Like people can't go less than a week without making, because one of them is Shabbos, and you can have meat on Shabbos, so everyone goes crazy about these
CM culture, by the way.
Yeah, you see these big events, of like big barbecues, and you're like, really, you finished this Gemara? Yeah, it's good timing, huh? And people that you would never invite to anything, you're like, hey, come to my Siyum. I think the Kamsa Bar Kamsa thing was a Siyum, but basically, in this sketch, I'm just gonna say watch the sketch, but it's basically about how it devolves into finishing a section of the Gemara, you make a Siyum. And then it goes beyond that to...
But the next level is finishing an article in the
Jewish Link.
Yeah.
And make a Siyum.
So I have a question about J-Sketch. The other guys in J-Sketch, Mikey Greenblatt and Ami Kozak, right? So they're also up-and-comers in the Jewish comedy scene.
Yeah.
How were you connected to them, like just through the Jewish comedy world?
So Ami I met, I think, at Vacation Village last year. He was there with his family in the summer I was doing a show. And I think that was the first time we went, or we may have met at one of Elon Gold's shows.
Sure.
Yeah, and then Mikey also I'd met through a little bit of the Jewish comedy space. It's a really small niche of people, to be honest.
Well, it's funny because Mikey Greenblatt, I also know he runs Jewish Vibes.
Yes.
And we also put their memes a lot in Memes of the Week. He's very funny like that too. So.
Yeah, and also even in Vadahad Bat Chanim, which is like one of the Twitter accounts that we started during me, Avi Schwartz is a big proponent of that, and during COVID we started doing this group of there is what to make jokes about in the Jewish life.
Yeah.
So with Ami and Mikey, I think once I started doing comedy full time in January, I ended up doing Ami's podcast called Buckle Up, and I was able to. I was like, hey, I'd love to have just a things for these sketches. I have a couple ideas, and that my first one was the Esther one for Purim. And then from there, I'm just like, okay. And then we just, Ami's a machine when it comes to output. He has his own Instagram. He is amazing at the impressions and
totally.
The editing of it.
Well, I
and
remember
Mikey too.
When I interviewed you for a Jewish Link story about you had a stand up New York show that was just you doing.
In March, yeah.
Yeah. And you had just recorded that J-Sketch, that first J-Sketch video for Esther, and you were hyping it up. And I was so excited to see how it would turn out. And it's awesome. I mean, this is I love sketch comedy. Grew up with SNL, I love that kind of humor. So I think it's really going places. I mean, it's funny and I love it.
Thank God. I mean, listen, we've done about 5 or 6 videos, and just on Instagram alone, some of them, I think the one we did of Tisha B'Av, which was mostly Tisha B'Av, we released one that got like 130,000 views on Instagram alone, let alone Twitter. Who knows how many on WhatsApp with people that
sharing. And
that's forwarded many times has got to be like,
by the
600,000.
way, that's how Elizabeth Kratz, our editor, found this the J Sketch one that features the Jewish link. One of her friends from Australia had forwarded it to her via WhatsApp, basically like, hey, did you see that the Jewish link is in this sketch? And that was like immediately after that video was released. So it was already circulating like crazy.
I hope the author of The Goodnight Moon also got it forwarded to them. That would be very incredible.
I strongly doubt that.
No, so thank God this Jewish J Sketch thing has been really incredible. Ami and Mikey have been great to work with. And we're just have a very similar sense of humor in terms of like, we're like, okay, this is what we should do. We have another one coming out for the Chagim in a few weeks. And we want to do kind of with the timing of the calendar. So that was the Siyum was like, all right, what's everyone talking about during the 9 days? Everyone's like, all right, you can't do anything fun. And then like I added a couple ideas like, hey, let's have them drink milk beforehand and whatever. Like, just like, oh, the 9 days is so hard and all that stuff. But it's just fun because there is stuff that's like on everyone's mind. So it's a little bit like, what is the zeitgeist of what people are thinking? So my stand-up, for example, one of the clips I released was about the Sota clip. Again, if you could watch it on my Instagram, whatever. But basically, I released it while I realized that it was going to be Sota for Daf Yomi. So that means somebody was like, oh, did you know it was Daf Yomi for Sota? I was like, yeah, I purposely marketed it that way because I knew that anyone doing Daf Yomi is going to be potentially is going to be talking about this clip for 50 days straight of like, hey, there's a thing. And, I think a lot of people saw that one too. So there's a lot of good having a pulse of like what the Jewish community is what the Orthodox community is talking about, I think is a really huge part of it. So
totally.
And knowing when timing of like, okay, I'm not going to release anything August 27th because it's rabbi vacation and people go away and whatever, people are away. But you do one as soon as I'm like thinking, okay, when do people start talking about Chagim and Rosh Hashanah? Maybe a little bit after Elul. It depends if you're Sephardi or not. But like the second week of September, I think is when Rosh Hashanah is really going to be in everyone's mind.
Totally, yeah.
So how are you dealing with the transition to being a homeowner full time? To tell us about your schedule for the next few months. Anything big coming up or any big events?
Well, home ownership is. I feel it's like Shana Rishona. There's a lot of adjusting. You're like, oh,
it is Shana Rishona, by the way, in a home.
Very much so. Yeah. Well, it's like you're like, this is, I don't know what I'm doing, and this is very expensive, like that. But also there's apparently in the Torah, I didn't know this, that there's a thing that says like reasons that you can be excused from war, and one of them is you got married, whatever, and once you bought a house. And I just love that idea of like them saying, why couldn't you go to the battle this week? Oh yeah, I got a HVAC guy coming and something going on with the toilet. I'm not even sure. So home ownership, there's a lot of new material, a lot of stuff happening there. I'm doing a lot of laundry, but also like I try to write. I write with Elon Gold a couple times a week. I give him a couple tags for his stuff, and he helps me with my stuff, and it's really. And again, I try to do a lot of these sketches that we are just taking ideas, and just as long as that every day I'm doing something that's like helping promote my comedy in some way or creatively, doing it. I mean, I also think of my material during the shower, Shemon Esrei, stuff that everybody.
The usual times.
The usual times. So it's, but what's the most freeing thing is that I'm doing this full time. It's like the ability to say yes to projects. And again, Ami asked me to do his podcast in January, and that led to just, this J Sketch collaboration and being able to just have an open schedule and not be like, can I do this event in November? And I don't know, do I have PTO? Like that's the freedom to do that. And again, saying yes is such I actually think that's like a big thing when it comes to like, this is going to sound very mussery, but I don't mean to like dating wise. I think sometimes when I performed on a lot of Shabbatons for people that are single, and one time I asked, it's a lot of times it's very hard to get guys to go on these Shabbatons or to go to these events. And I asked a guy once, I said, do you want to go on one of these Shabbatons? He said, I don't know if I can commit to a whole Shabbos. And I was like, marriage is like a bunch of Shabbases, right? It's like mostly Shabbos. But but I really mean that I think there's a lot of pressure built into a lot of these events because people are like, I better meet my Bashar. I have to meet someone. Instead of, I think if you have the attitude a little bit more, and it's easy for me to say, but like, I know how it's pretty hard out there, but like, I think having the ability to say yes to things and what will happen, you never know. Like, you never know that, again, meeting Ami last summer in the Catskills or a time before that, at an Elon show, and then all of a sudden we're doing his podcast, and now like we're doing this like sketch group. It's amazing. Awesome. So you don't know what's going to lead to things. In terms of things coming up, I mean, I'm kind of touring all over. I'm at like different private events for shuls or organizations. I'm going in October. I'm going to Florida, Buffalo, Toronto, Cleveland. In December, I'm doing Memphis and Tampa, and maybe Pittsburgh, as well as in November, I think stuff locally. And I got some. I mean, I'm booking dates for fall and the winter. People message me on Instagram, LEComedygram, which is terrible Instagram handle, but and my website is lecomedy.com because Lebowicz is like kindergarten when it comes to spelling. You for sure can weed out the telemarketers.
That's for sure.
Moshe kindergarten there.
That's right. I try to always be courteous, but you at
least be like, all right. You at least know right away. Like, but I answer every robo dial I get because every phone number you get. Because what if like the Prince of Nigeria wants to hire you for a bar mitzvah?
Oh, actually, I thought you answered them because any one of these could be comedic material as well.
That's true. There's a good Pete Holmes bit about telemarketers that I can send you after. But yeah, I just did, as Hannah mentioned, I did this show in March at Stand Up New York, a sold out show, kind of recording a bunch of my stuff. I'm probably going to be doing hopefully another headlining show at Stand Up New York in probably the fall. I don't have any specific date yet for that, but I gotta plan around the Jewish calendar,
Of course.
And then you gotta plan around Yeshiva week and all that. There's a lot of hurdles. But I just did the Chosen Comedy Festival I did three different shows. The opening night was the Cartwright Hotel in the Catskills, 450 people. Sold out. It was like Elon Gold and friends. So it was like myself, Eli Leonard, Elon Altman, Talia Reese, Olga Namer, and Ami was on there, and that was awesome. And then a couple nights later, we did a Rising Stars show that I closed out at Stand Up New York, and that Ami and Mikey were able to be on. And then the Coney Island thing was this past week at Coney Island Amphitheater. It's kind of crazy performing on stage in front of thousands of people, even if they're
biggest stage you've been on, you think?
Definitely. I think so. I mean, I once did an IMAX movie theater on Chol Moed for Hasidim in Niagara Falls. They didn't appreciate the YU jokes. Also, a lot of it was in Yiddish. That was always a bucket list one. But yeah, this was definitely the biggest show I've done. I did a few minutes on the show. It was really, Elon Gold was really helpful, and Donnie Zoldan and John at Stand Up New York just putting me on the show. It was really, really, really nice of them to give me the opportunity because, as I said, a lot of these people have had like TV credits, and me, you've seen it, The Youngers of West Hempstead, and This Time You Can Laugh. No,
I thought it was a good line.
Thank you. No, I'm kidding. No, it was really nice. It was such a nice turnout, and also to perform for Orthodox Jews like in such a huge listen. I'm still auditioning. I got 3 years till the Siyum Shas. I'm trying to aim for that MetLife.
Are you doing DAF? You doing the?
No, I'm not. But I did the SOTA thing, and that was enough.
Okay, got it. Understood. But it's just funny. I want to just say you mentioned telling me about getting material during davening. I actually find Shemona Esrei probably the hardest. It's probably the best time for material. The time that you're actually supposed to be focused on davening is the time when your mind just goes elsewhere.
Yeah, no, 100% of just like my groceries. Oh yeah. Oh shoot, that's why it's the Friday night thing, right? Friday night during the summer, you're like, all right, I'm gonna have all this kavana, and then about 2 minutes into Shemona Esrei, and then you hope nobody saw it, but Also, or whenever the chazan does a long Friday night, like during the summer, like a big schlepped out thing, you're like, oh, this guy ate lunch today for sure.
He's not hungry.
He's not hungry, and you're just sitting there, and you're like, and that's why there's going to be stuff about the Chagim, about sitting.
Well, is there like good new material to look forward to also when you have all these upcoming shows? I mean,
yeah, well, absolutely, no, for sure. And that's also the thing is like mining the Jewish life for material, and I'm not necessarily doing that, but it just comes up, thank God, naturally. But like, yeah, we have a J sketch coming up about all the holidays coming up. That'll be hopefully around Rosh Hashanah. And then we want to do another one, like, about in shul on the holidays maybe. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff. That anytime there's the hardest time is after the holidays, because there's 6 months of like not nothing, but like it's like cheshvan and stuff, which is good because we'll have stuff that we have kind of J sketch ideas for like that aren't holiday related. Like I want to do a sequel to the restaurant one where it's a Jewish non-Jewish guys at a kosher restaurant and stuff like that. So it'll be definitely.
Where do you like workshop your new material? Like where do you go?
So we want to work on me, Ami, and Mikey are talking about doing some sort of like Bergen County show where it'll be once a month maybe or so. We're hopefully going to do the first one in September on Rosh Hashanah. No.
That wouldn't work.
I think the guy who like we were talking to was like, "You want to do it September 14th?" And we're like, "The night before Rosh Hashanah?" Probably not. I imagine like people going to 2-hour slichos and be like, "You guys want to come to a show?" And
you stand right outside slichos and you give out tickets.
No joke.
After show.
No joke. If Yom Kippur wasn't such a serious day, I feel like there's a good
after show.
I'm just saying there's a good event to do post Yom Kippur. I used to do a Tainas Dibur on Yom Kippur where I didn't talk the whole Yom Kippur other than davening. Well, I do this for a living, so I talk enough for the year that it averages out. That
one day is fine.
Yeah, one day.
You stopped at Tanis Dibur though? You don't do it?
I had kids and it was tough, but like I think me and my wife once had a 45-minute conversation. I didn't talk the whole time. It was I'm not saying usually I talk a ton, but I'm just like doing. I'm pretty good at charades. But when you have kids, it's like really tough. Like even davening Shemona Esrei, it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Davening Mariv or something or Mincha, and like my kids are like, "Daddy, why aren't you talking? Like, how is it right there? What are you doing?" And it's like, and half the time, like parenting is just like it's me looking at my phone, being like, "Careful." And I go back to my phone, and so Shemona Esrei is a little bit better.
It's funny actually. I feel like tefillah davening has always been a big part of your humor. Like there's so much to mine.
So much material in davening.
It's almost like a Torah. It's almost infinite. It seems like.
I mean, listen, they're like, it's almost like the siddur has stuff in there for you to skip. Like, come on. I mean, that's not the biggest difference. In Israel, they actually do korbanos, apparently.
Yes.
Which, that's good. Kol kavod, good for them. But
and they do duchening every day.
I think a friend of mine said, he's like, you haven't been to Minyan in a while when you forget that there's tachman as a thing. Like, yeah, duchening every day. Yeah. Well, I know that was another clip I released. I said I'm a Levi, and when I went to Israel. One time I forgot that they do duchening every day, so I'm a Levi. I had to wash all the Kohanim's hands, and one time there was 6 Kohanim, and I was the only Levi, and I had to wash all their hands, and they were just like waiting for me like to do it, and I saw how annoyed they were. They were just like, we just do this ourselves. I felt like a gas station attendant in New Jersey. Like I was just like, you know what, this creates jobs. This is important.
Keeps people busy.
Now I'm a New Jersey resident, so I feel like I can make that, and jokes about not having my garbage collected by the town is What is up with that? That and blue laws. How is that?
We'll talk about it offline. TNEG is behind on certain things. They like the way it is.
I'm amazed how the Jewish Link hasn't been like, hey, by the way, blue laws is the most anti-Semitic thing, or not.
Blue laws is interesting. It's an anachronism. There's no question. It's specific to this county. We
Anachronism
can talk about.
For those of us that didn't know.
It's something it's kind of a little.
It's a Mel Brooks joke.
We've actually tackled the subject over the years, and
that's what the angry letters were about, right?
Yeah, totally.
We definitely have. And by the way, you should know on this issue. By the way, I actually like issues like blue laws because issues like blue laws are great because it's an issue in which Orthodox Jews can have very different opinions. Many Orthodox Jews say, "Hey, we want Sunday shopping." And then we got a letter from the shuls in Paramus saying we like Garden State Plaza being closed. It helps Route 4. So I'm just telling you.
Here's a comedy Jewish Link event. Great debate. Blue laws, good or bad? Or
I feel like we could have a lot of debate events. Public debate.
A lot of public debate, and you say, that's what you do.
But it's emceed by
I
Ellie
want
Lebowicz.
to say one of the failures of me as a publisher is that I always wanted to have point counterpoints like that in the paper, and you know what?
But like not ironically like the Onion.
Not a lot,
like actual.
no, like real ones, and it's really
No, Juba, Israel, judicial reform.
it's really
That's not a hot button issue at all.
No, no.
in a sense, because it's at a remove, it's a little bit further away. We might be able to do that in our paper. Our community or readership tends to lean more, right wing and pro reform, but I could see it. I could see it. But what I was saying is my major failure as a publisher is not having enough of those l'shem shamayim. Basically like I guess like a Mizrahi versus a good. These kind of really impassioned debates with kind of an acceptable framework. I wish there was more of these kinds of debates. So
Listen, I mean, you can do about like I don't know which one's Barbie or Oppenheimer. You start out that way.
pop culture.
No, pop culture in general. No, but you're right. I think like listen, the level of debate in general is just everyone's at each other's throats, and like I think there's a lot of it is also just like it's like when you get a text, you automatically assume a tone. Like when somebody writes the word, you ask a question to someone and they write no in a text, it automatically seems like they're mean, and you're like,
I thought you were mean when we were texting this morning because you were like, I said looking forward to seeing you soon, and you were like, yep, and I was like, oh, Ellie Lebowicz hates me. So
I was literally like, oh shoot, I have to shave now because apparently this is on camera, and that was me being, yep, I gotta go.
Yep.
I didn't write K at least, which apparently
I think you did actually.
Probably.
You did a good job with the shave. Tone is terrible with text. We all, anyone
Tone
monitored
is
it.
terrible. It's like, do you hate me? And I was like,
Exactly.
no, I just told you to get 3 tomatoes, and but no. So I think that's what everyone has really. As a society, because we're all about reading stuff online and texting stuff, and it's like you just assume this person's views and you kind of project all this other backstory to them, as opposed to, and that's why stand-up comedy and sketch comedy is good to see, because you're like, oh, you can actually read inflection and there's like, oh, like if somebody quotes my stuff in a paper, it doesn't always come out as well because you're like, why do I mean like that?
And it also seems flatter sometimes in the printed word. It just doesn't. It doesn't come.
There are some. So that is the niche of making a memes of the week tweet is a very different than. I mean, tweets are a good first draft for me sometimes. That's my open.
Does the joke work?
It's a little bit my open mic of like. I mean, years ago I had. 2014, I had a joke. I said, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton in the upcoming election in 2014. So everyone's going to yell at me no matter what. But I said, I'm voting for Hillary Clinton in the upcoming election because I wanted to see what the Haredi newspapers will do when they can't show a picture of the president. And that joke is not funny now anymore for like a million reasons. But I'm just saying Harriet Tubman was supposed to be on the $20 bill, and I don't know what happened. So I think my question is, what are the borough parks if that ever happens? If that ends up happening,
they won't use $20 bills.
They're just going to use tens the entire time, and 50s. And sorry for if it's canceling in the last 30 seconds. But
don't worry about it. We're good. Although we do generally tend to stay away from aggravating our Haredi readership. So
yeah, listen, I'm wearing a greenish blue shirt. So
don't worry, you're good. I'll make up for the blue.
Listen, you're wearing a blue
button
shirt.
down. Ellie, just first of all, thanks for coming on the show. Keep on, coming up with great stuff. Love watching your career grow. Love watching your, it's really nice for us to see, and also especially because you're local and. Super hatzlacha to you, man.
Thank you. Yeah, happy to. I'm glad we got to the Jewish Link and that Siyum video.
Keep making great meme content too.
Well, please,
Love it.
Yeah, I had a great time here. So thanks very much.
Thanks for being with us on the Jewish Link Pitch Meeting podcast. If you would like to participate or be in touch with us in any way, please email us at editor@jewishlink.news. And follow us and find our podcast wherever you find podcasts.